The first of 3 secrets that will aid you in speaking better than 99% of people is to upgrade your workhorse words. Workhorse words are common and vague words that we overwork to the point of exhaustion in our speech. Here's a visualizer to understand this. The horizontal axis plots how common to uncommon a word is, and the vertical axis how vague to precise a word is. Workhorse words are words that fall within this radius. For example, we might describe a meal as good. Good is a workhorse word. A movie was good. Vacation might also be good. Our relationship, pretty good, great, or awesome. We collapse the rich, dynamic nature of life and the world around us into a vague, cheap adjective. Articulate speakers select words that are sourced from within this radius. These are moderately precise words that are beyond the common vocabulary of most people. Certainly, we recognize these words, but we don't employ them in our speech. If I were to ask you to describe a coworker's attitude, you might tell me that they were cool or nice. A more precise description might be to say they were considerate, approachable, or cordial. I've been able to replace my workhorse words with words of greater power and precision by following 4 steps. Step number 1 is to select a workhorse word that you know you employ excessively in your speaking. To help you with this, I've aggregated the most common workhorse words into a PDF that is accessible below this video. Let's say we want to enrich the word good. After selecting a high volume workhorse word, identify the context in which the word is commonly used. For example, are you using good to describe an attribute, food, a person, project, an experience? Let's imagine we're referencing to food. Step 3, find an articulate alternative using one of 2 methods. Method 1 is to use the well-spoken thesaurus, which I'll link to for free below this video. The well-spoken thesaurus is an exhaustive list of more precise and articulate substitutes for ordinary words. The second method is to use one of the following ChatGPT prompts, also provided below. One of these provides you with articulate alternatives to your workhorse word based on the context in which you would use your workhorse word, such as in describing food. The other prompt provides you with a list of examples from novels where characters use rich, dynamic, varied descriptions of your workhorse word. The goal is to find a word or expression that you're comfortable with using and consider featuring that on your phone lock screen as a reminder. Step 4, use your voice to punch up the workhorse word to increase your awareness of it. Good, good, good. You want yourself to become sensitized to the word to the point where you become aware of your tendency to default to it just before it happens. This 4-step process invites the question, how will I keep track of everything? This leads me to the second secret that will put you in the top 1% of articulators. If you watch the interviews of some of history's greatest wordsmiths, you'll begin to notice patterns in their language. Specifically, you'll notice the repetition of particular creative phrases and expressions. For example, Reverend Martin Luther King would frequently use phrases such as cosmic significance, rabble-rousers and agitators, depths and dimensions of the problem. Thomas Jefferson often employed the phrases human life of happiness and incomprehensible machine of man. Muhammad Ali would frequently say style, stamina, and system. What you realize is that most intelligent phrases and expressions aren't generated on the fly. Rather, they are pre-assembled in advance and activated in speech, creating almost an artificial articulacy. From Reagan to Roosevelt to Churchill to Cicero, many of history's greatest articulators used a similar technique. That technique is called the Commonplace Book. The Commonplace Book is an aggregate of every clever phrase or concise word combination that you encounter that you wish to absorb into your own speaking. I've kept a physical Commonplace Book for some years now. I've recently migrated it to Google Docs. Here's my current Commonplace Book. I can't reveal all the contents, but we can preview the structure. I have divided this into 13 sections that represent different facets of my life, from technology to politics to social media, religion, language. Each section features creative word combinations, jokes, analogies, metaphors, quotes. This table here, for example, tracks my workhorse words and the articulate alternatives I'm attempting to work into my speech. I read through this entire document once a week, and that frequency is based on Benjamin Franklin, who also kept a Commonplace Book and would review his every Sunday. This template I've created for myself can be found below this video. What a Commonplace Book allows you to do is develop a bank of rich word combinations that you can use to assemble articulate thoughts. When we speak, for most of us, the average sentence looks something like this. It's rather dull and flat, peppered with ums and ahs, cliche expressions, and all kinds of vapid, vague, Kirkland brand language. We occasionally add color to our sentences by using unordinary and creative word combinations, but that's rare. There's, of course, nothing wrong with speaking in this way. For 99% of people, this is our communication default. But there's no denying that those who use fresh words to engineer well-constructed, colorful thoughts give their sentences an articulate heartbeat that is engaging and pleasurable to listen to. Imagine an idea that might take you 2 sentences to communicate, that you've collapsed into a 3-word phrase and now added to your Commonplace Book. When you enter the realm of conversation pertaining to that idea, you can begin to employ the contents of your Commonplace Book. Instead of vaguely saying someone did a bad thing, your tongue selects grave injustice. That opinion becomes school of thought. Someone who is extremely sad can be dealing with soul-destroying anguish. It depends on the context, of course. These phrases allow you to compose sentences that are more seamless and teeming with color. I want to share one final technique that will aid you in creating lean, crisp sentences. Remember that jagged, broken sentence visualizer that we referenced earlier? That barbed line isn't just the result of using ordinary words and fillers. It's also the result of redundant and bloated language. If you think about the average spoken sentence as a thin line, such as what is illustrated here, bloated language is the fat around your words that makes your sentences feel heavy and greasy. There are 3 speaking habits that contribute to fatty sentences. First are fillers. The big 5 fillers are ah, like, and so. These create tiny bumps in our sentences and break the flow of our delivery. Second, we have redundancy spirals. This is where we double or triple up our words in an attempt to explain an idea. It was a really hard time. There are an endless, countless, unlimited number of things we can do. I want to read a book and just understand, internalize, and read the information. In these examples, instead of moving forward with the delivery of my thought and covering new ground, I'm retracing previous verbal territory with replications and variations of the same word. You might think I'm being scrupulous here, but pruning redundancy spirals from your speaking is one of the chief contributors to creating clean speech. There's a crisp quality to sentences without it. In fact, what makes the words of great articulators so penetrating is the amount of effort they've put into unlearning poor speech habits like redundancy spirals and like the third type of fatty language, intensifiers. Intensifiers are empty words that we use to cushion our adjectives in sentences. Kind of, sort of, actually, really, basically, virtually, totally, literally, super, pretty much. Our trip was really fantastic. I literally just saw them at the store. I kind of want to go to that Mediterranean restaurant. The trouble with intensifiers is that they pad our sentences with uncertainty and cheapen the meaning of our words. It's not enough to say an event was fantastic. It has to be pretty fantastic to be fantastic. None of these fatty language habits are word crimes against humanity. 99% of us communicate using bloated language, including myself. But if you want to achieve greater exactness with your speaking, I suggest 3 actions. Number 1 is to keep your mouth closed until you've defined your starting words. The most vulnerable moment, particularly for filler words, is at the start of our sentences. Keeping your mouth closed prevents your brain from defaulting to that initial that your mind so desperately wants you to lead with. As it relates to redundancy spirals and intensifiers, the best solution I found is simply awareness. The challenge is, how do we keep our mind focused on stripping our sentences of bloated language without taking away cognitive horsepower from communicating our thoughts. I noticed this when I was modifying my own speaking behaviors, and I invented two solutions. One is to process the endings of your words. When you hear the endings of your words, you can't help but focus on what it is you're saying. This results in more calculated speech. The second solution, create a finger tab. This practice consists of pinching your index finger and thumb together as a way of keeping your mind focused on reducing redundancy spirals and intensifiers in your speaking. When you create that pinch and you hold it as you speak, that mild discomfort creates an open tab in your mind that causes you to audit your speech more carefully. If I'm gesticulating a lot with my hands, what I will often do as an alternative to the finger tab is scrunch my toes in my shoes. You only have to do this until you retrain your mind to speak concisely. Every method discussed in this video, I've assembled into a free PDF linked below for easy review. Let's make this generation one of the most well-spoken in the history of humanity. Thanks for watching, and consider subscribing.